Want to bring in our panel, Molly Ball, longtime political reporter, and Olivier Knox, senior national correspondent for U.S. News and World Report, and also at the desk, Robert Costa, our senior political analyst. Molly, let me start with you. I'm just going to give you the floor.
Well, I've been thinking about the last couple of times that I spent time with Charlie Kirk, and I spent the better part of a day with him at the Republican convention where he was taping his radio show, and there was a parade of important guests, members of Congress and other and other luminaries in the party. They all wanted to be on his show. He was walking on air because he had been a top advocate for J.D. Vance to be named to the ticket. He really believed in this populist nationalist transformation of the Republican Party that he saw Trump as leading, and he was overjoyed to see that continue in the form of J.D. Vance. And we talked about that at the time. And then later last year, I saw him in Arizona, where he was helping Kari Lake's campaign, her unsuccessful campaign for the Senate. There were volunteers for that campaign who had flown in from all over the country. And it was because he was talking about his turnout efforts on his radio show, Charlie Kirk was. He had the power to give people ways to act and mobilize them to contribute. He was an organizer. And I really think that he was testament to the idea that a single person can change the country if they work at it. And he became incredibly powerful, really on the strength of his voice, and that was it.
And Olivier, he spoke about politics in a sort of larger-than-life way. This was a civilizational struggle, and he believed that Trump and Trumpism was part of the way America could save itself. And that found a resonance that I think at times even surprised Charlie, but it caught on. Yeah, college campuses and elsewhere.
Extraordinary resonance through his various old media and new media mechanisms for getting his message across. We're no strangers to political violence in America. We've had a bevy of presidents assassinated in office. But the system's been really blinking red in the last few years with escalations of threats against members of Congress. I don't want to insult anyone, but random members of Congress. We've seen
federal judges.
And so it feels like we've entered a different era when it comes to political violence, where it's much more broad-based. And I wonder to what degree it comes out of a concern that politics has now become all or nothing, as you said earlier, sort of an existential problem, and that people are losing faith in politics, traditional politics, as a way of working out our grievances and our disagreements.
Robert Costa, the floor is yours.
Covered Charlie Kirk for a long time, and this was a major force in American politics, though he was very young.
And this will be deeply felt within the Trump White House.
Clearly already is. The president.
I mean, so many people within that building knew and worked very closely with Charlie, held him in very high regard. So it'll be a personal moment, a political moment, a national moment for all of them.
Close to Vice President Vance, close to Donald Trump Jr., close to President Trump.
And to Olivier's point about this idea that all or nothingism creeping in, or maybe very widespread in American political life, that seems to be a reality that has taken a horrific turn this afternoon in Orem, Utah, on a college campus.
Violence, the specter of violence is everywhere in American politics right now. Unfortunately, it's part of our history. Think about President Lincoln, President Kennedy, shots fired at President Reagan, political candidates like George Wallace, lawmakers like Gabby Gifford, Steve Scalise, survived shootings. Charlie Kirk was someone who was so happy to be in the arena. I was just listening the other day to his conversation with Governor Gavin Newsom of California, podcast conversation. And Kirk could be a rally presence,
sure,
hand in the air,
provocateur.
But he was really at ease in the college setting or the podcast setting, having a dialogue. And that's where he found so much of a following. People listened to him and found that he was articulate in raising new kinds of conservative arguments that generated such an audience.
And Molly, very quickly, about a minute, maybe less, Charlie made himself relevant. That is to say, he became a force that others noticed and then felt that, like you witnessed, they needed to be around him and they needed to be in his sphere that he created.
Absolutely, and he did it with just the power, the simple power of his perspective. And I think, as Matthew Continetti was saying earlier, really refusing to accept as a state of nature that young people were just going to be liberal. He really believed he could go out and he could convince people to believe the things that he believed, and that was incredibly powerful.
Olivier, I was just informed in my ear that we're going to continue our conversation. So you had more than time than I suggested you might. So Olivier, you can go on as long as you want. There is already, as we speak, each and every second we're here, there is a raging social media absorption, reabsorption, recontextualizing, and angry and increasingly angry conversation about what this is, what this isn't, what it represents, what it doesn't represent. That's another factor that we have to absorb and try to weigh.
We're deep into the politics of the algorithm that rewards the most shocking, the most outrageous, and especially the most angering, infuriating kind of content. I don't know how you teach civics to a generation that is coming up right now that will only ever have known social media algorithms and algorithmic news, where you're not being exposed to a large number of topics. You're only really getting deep into a few of them. Social media right now, for all of the wonderful sentiments, sad but wonderful sentiments, bipartisan condemnations of Charlie Kirk's assassination from prominent Democrats, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Josh Shapiro, just everyone coming out. There's a darker side on social media right now. Some folks celebrating the death, and of course, people sharing for clicks and clout the actual video of Charlie Kirk being assassinated.
Olivier Knox, Robert Costa, Molly Ball. It's been a very hard day. I thank you all for joining us.